So this is the second short video continuing the discussion of Module 4, Topic 4 on frequency tables. It starts on page 63 in the workbook. And we had just come down to the point where we were using these class boundaries here in the workbook to classify these trees here in our data spreadsheet. And we had decided that the first three trees belong to class A because their diameters are between 0 and 1.5 inches. And so continuing on along, between 1.5 and 3 inches of diameter will give you a tree belonging to class B. So I'm typing class B in here, and then the first opportunity that you have to make a mistake is in deciding what to do about the tree whose diameter is 3.0 inches, tree number 7 here. And when you look at the definition of class B, it includes all trees whose diameter X is strictly greater than 1.5 inches, but less than or equal to 3.0 inches. And so a tree whose diameter is equal to 3.0 inches does belong to class C. It does not, class B, but it does not belong to class C. So I'm going to come over here on my spreadsheet and I'm going to type a B there. Now, the reason for setting up the class boundaries this way with the greater than or equal to on the top end rather than the bottom end is so that when you use it to count how many trees belong in each class, you will you'll arrive at the same count that you could get using a feature in Microsoft Excel. It was arbitrary. They could have put the less than or equal to on the left-hand side of the inequality rather than the right-hand side, and it would have worked just fine, but we're doing it this way so that everyone in the class does it the same way, and so that that'll match up with what you get from Excel when you use a feature that I'll show you in the next video. Okay, so the main focus of this video is not going to be to count all these trees, but to show you how to format a table in Excel. So looking over here at the spreadsheet, let's see, I've hidden some columns. Let me unhide here these columns where I've gone ahead and I've put each tree into a class, and I've counted how many trees belong to each class. So we have class A through class F, and I'm just going to start making my table over here in Excel. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Okay, so here are my classes, A, B, C, D, E. Look at that. When you start to type a word in Excel, I just typed the letter C, and what did it do? It guessed that I wanted to type the word class because it sees there's already that word appearing in the column, and it tries to guess and autofill for me. I didn't want that, so I'll just go ahead and delete those extra characters now. And the way I edit is I can either click up here in this bar up at the top, an editing bar up there, or I can even just double click on a cell and edit right inside the cell. I want the title of this table not just to be the distribution of diameters, but I want it to be the distribution of the diameters of oak trees. You may remember the instructions for making the title of our number line plot, where it was the words, quote, distribution of, end quote, and then the name of the variable, and then of, and then you try to identify as much as you can about the population from which the individuals were taken. All we know from this story is just they are some oak trees. It would be better if we could pin that down more, but we cannot. So my title for the table is going to be Distribution of Diameters of Oak Trees, just the same as the title for the number line plot that we did. And now I'll fill in the frequencies. There were 3 trees in class A, so a 3 goes here, 4 trees in class B, so a 4 goes there, and then it's 4871. I know it's 4, 4. There are 2 4s. 8, 7, 1. Goes all the way up to class F. So I've filled in the frequencies, and now I want to get the percent frequencies. And so to do that, I'll click over here in this top cell. I'll type in equals to tell it I'm giving it a formula. I'll say equals. I want this number, the 3. I don't type a 3. I just click on it. And Excel puts in a reference to that cell. So it's going to take the contents of cell Q11. And then I want to divide by the total number of trees that we have. And I could just type 27. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go down here and just select this 27. And I'll just say enter. I'll click the enter on my keyboard. And there's 3/27. Now, the number that appears here is not correct yet, because up here in my heading for this column, I'm saying in parentheses PCT, indicating that the units of measurement are percents. And 3/27 is about 11%, not 0.11%. So if you put the PCT up here, then you're going to need to take this number here and multiply it by 100 to make that match. So I put that Q11 over C35, I put that in parentheses, and I use the asterisk for multiplication. And I'm going to multiply by 100. And then I just say enter. And now that's my percent frequency. I don't really need all those digits. When I put this onto graph on graph paper, I'm going to let each little tick mark on the graph paper be either 1% or 0.1%, but I'm not going to have hundreds of tick marks. So let's get rid of a couple of digits here. I go up here, I'm in the home menu, and over here there are these 2 buttons for changing the number of decimal points. I'm going to click this one and take it down to 11.1%. The complete number is still stored in Excel. This is only changing the display format. Now, I want to fill up the rest of the table, and I want to do it without a lot of typing. And so there's a copy and paste operation. it will not immediately do exactly what you want. And so you need to understand how copy-paste works in Excel with formulas. See, when I copy and paste into the cell right below, it's not going to copy literally. Q11 is the column and row of the next door neighbor. When I copy and paste, that Q11 is going to be replaced with Q12 because that's the row and column of the new next door neighbor. Let me show you what I mean. I do Control C to copy. I click on the next cell down. I do Control V to paste. And you look at the formula, and it's changed the Q11 to Q12, which is exactly what we want. What we would like this to be is 4 over 27. So it made that adjustment for us. The trouble is, it also adjusted the red C36 here. It used to be C35, and after we copied and pasted, it became C36. That's the same relative position down here, one below the 27. Well, we don't like that. We wanted to keep it right on the 27. So what I can do, I can change the way that the copy and paste performs. Let me delete that. Go back up here. When I copy and paste, I want the Q11 to go by relative position, but I want the C35 to remain fixed as an absolute position. I use this dollar symbol to stand for absolute C, absolute 35. So it will not use the relative position when I copy and paste. So now when I do Control C to copy and Control V to paste, now I get 14.8%. That's the Q12, which is the 4, still divided by C35, which is still the original 27. And so I get the percentage that I want. Now, to avoid having to copy and paste repeatedly, I can click the left mouse button and hold it down on this little handle at the lower right-hand corner of the cell. So I pushed down the mouse button and I'm holding it. And now I drag down and it will copy and paste into all the cells below so I can fill up my table. One more trick, and even easier than that, I can point at this little handle again and double click it. And then that's just like I dragged it down. It'll keep going till it no longer has a neighbor. And so it knew it had come to the bottom of the table. So those are my percent frequencies for the classes. And now I want to do a little work to format this. And well, I'm going to add some extra columns. Now this is all you need for the example in the workbook and for the homework examples. But I'm adding some more columns because they're coming up very soon. And now it's just a convenient time to do it while we're here. So you'll use these extra columns eventually when you write the research paper. So I've hidden some columns here, and I want to unhide those. That's not the one I wanted. I've hidden some columns over here, and I want to unhide those. There we go. I'm going to bring this spreadsheet to full screen. So the upper and lower boundaries of the classes. Class A went from 0 to 1.5 inches. I'm just typing the numbers here in the first row, and I'll type some formulas in the second row, and then I'll just do this double-click thing again and let it copy the formulas on down to fill out the rest of the table. So the lower boundary of Class A was 0 inches. The upper boundary is 1.5 inches. The class mark, that's like the midpoint on the x-axis, the middle of that class. And it's just halfway between the 1.5 and the 0. So I'll type in equals to make a formula. I'll click the 0 plus the 1.5. And I'll divide by 2. If I average those two endpoints, I get the midpoint. And that is called the class mark. So if you had a tree, and you know that tree belongs to Class A, but you don't know exactly what's the diameter of the tree, your best guess would be 0.75 because that's right in the middle of the class. So that's the class mark. And then to get the class width, that's the distance between the top and the bottom. So I'll do equals to make a formula. And I'll take the 1.5, the upper boundary of the class, and subtract the 0, the lower boundary of the class. And I do not type the numbers, I just click because I want formulas that I can copy and paste. Okay, say enter. There we go. Now what about the next row? Well, the lower boundary of Class B should equal the upper boundary of Class A. There should be no distance between them, no gap between the classes. So I said type in equals and then click on the cell that I want and say enter. The upper boundary should be the lower boundary plus, well, we're making all the classes to have the same width, so I'll just add 1.5, and there we go. For the class mark, I don't have to do any typing again. That formula is just add your two neighbors on the left and divide by 2. So when I copy and paste that formula below, it adjusted the relative positions and it just adds my two neighbors on the left, divides them by 2. Same way with the class width. I'm just subtracting the class boundaries. We know it's going to keep coming out to 1.5, but later on we may do some examples with unequal class widths. That's a possibility for a certain type of histogram called a percent frequency density histogram. That's not covered in the textbook. We will make one of those for our project. Sometimes it's helpful to make the class widths not all equal to each other. So you would not have necessarily the same number all the way down this column. And that's why I'm calculating it by just subtracting the boundaries, whatever they may be. So if they're not following a consistent rule, you'll still get the right answer. So I'll copy and paste that. Now that I've made my formulas in each cell, those formulas are just referring to the row immediately above, and it's all relative positions. So if I were to copy the whole row and paste, I get the next row. And then if I double click the little handle at the lower right hand corner of the selection, it'll fill in the rest of the table for me. Now, it's nice to get in the habit of maintaining the same number of digits throughout a column in a table. See, some of these are whole numbers, just a plain 3, and some of them have a decimal like the 4.5. And we'll look at this later, but the number of digits that you display has a meaning in statistics. It communicates something to the reader about how accurate the numbers are. And so these should not be displayed with different numbers of digits. They're all perfectly accurate. I'm just going to display out to the nearest tenth for all of them. So I selected the whole group and then used this control under the home menu, under the number section. And I believe that's all we have to talk about. On the class mark here, I need to show one more digit in order that I can go halfway in between the two boundaries. In all of this, it's not really an accuracy question. These numbers are all perfectly accurate because we made up the boundaries ourselves. So it's not an accuracy issue, but it's good style to show the same number of digits, and you have to show at least enough that you don't make it look like the class mark is someplace other than halfway between. Okay, so we formatted the numbers. Now to make a nice table, you could paste into a research paper. It'll be different data when you do it, but you could, once you've made this one for this exercise, you could copy and paste it and then change the numbers. Change some of the labels a little bit. Yeah. So the nice thing is if you do it once in Excel and then you keep your Excel file, you almost never have to do anything twice. So let's format this right now. Okay, so I've made the selection here, and I'm going to click my right-hand mouse button inside that area. I'm going to click Format Cells. I'm going to come over here to Borders. I'm going to click this nice thick border and put it around the outside of my selection. And then I'm going to click on this little thin border and put that on all the inside cells and say OK. Well, that's a little bit better. I want to separate the headings from the numbers. So I'm going to select this row where we have the units of measurement in the headings. I'm going to right click and say Format Cells again. At the bottom of that selection, I want to use the medium-sized border. I'll click OK. And then I want to separate the overall title from the headings. So at the top of this selection, I'll put a medium border. And oh, that's good enough. I think we don't need the middle borders here. I'm going to select all these and click that separator until it goes away. Okay. Well, that's not too bad. Oh, the title up here. I want to merge and center the title. There's a button for merge and center under the alignment section of the home menu. Click that. And now I've got a percent frequency distribution table. And I'll just mention briefly for future reference. There's another column that I don't want to talk about yet, but one more thing. And this one more thing is the one that we'll really use for our graph in the project. But we'll save that. I'll hide that again. We can save that for another day. Now, the next little video that I do is going to talk about how to save some trouble. I put all these into classes and then counted them manually. And there's a tool in Excel that can help you with that. And so I'm going to show you how to install and use that tool in the next video. So that's all for now.